Hi, we welcome you to a very special edition of Game Time. Vince Giannini sitting in alongside 3D, Dennis Scott, and the Czar, Mike Fratello. David Aldridge will be by in just a moment. Gee, guys, I'm glad I dropped by today. Some things were happening. We had NBA trades of the blockbuster variety. Where do we begin? Let's begin right here with the Orlando Magic and Phoenix Suns. It went down like this. Heading to Orlando, going back, Hedo Turkoglu, along with Jason Richardson and second-year center Earl Clark. Going to Phoenix, Vince Carter, Marcin Gortat, and Michael Petrus. And they'll get a future first-round pick, will the Phoenix Suns, and $3 million cash as reported. Now, we also had another deal involving the Orlando Magic. This was Gilbert Arenas going from the Washington Wizards to the Magic, reunited with Otis Smith, the general manager in Orlando. And Rashard Lewis will be heading from Central Florida to Washington, D.C. Lots to talk about. We're going to get to that and have opinion and more. But right now, let's hear from Washington Wizards president Ernie Grunfeld.
No, I think we could have moved forward with him. And we had been moving forward with him. But when this opportunity presented itself, we just felt like it was a better opportunity for us to move forward and try to accomplish the things that we're trying to accomplish long term.
No. The Jameer will not come. Of the four guys, one of them's got to come off the bench. It will not be Jameer. So it'll be Gilbert or Jason or Turk. One of them's going to have to come off the bench. I mean, it will not be Jameer.
We got that. It will not be Jameer coming off the bench. So already parameters are set here. Where do we start? Let's start with Orlando, a team that was wondering if indeed they could win the Eastern Conference and get out. They made huge changes now. Mike, I'll start with you. Impressions of this trade.
I think both teams had a similar goal in mind, but coming from a little bit different perspective. Orlando looked around and said, you know what, we're not better than Boston. We're not better than Miami right now. So what are we going to play for in the end if we don't make the change and shake it up a little bit? So they were willing to take the gamble, and this is a gamble on everyone's part. Phoenix, on the other hand, same situation, but not playing for 1, 2, or 3. They're playing to try and get into the playoffs. So they were willing to shake it up there. You had some players who were not playing up to their expectations on both teams. They kind of swapped uniforms there. Money was a consideration. Expiring contracts a consideration.
And sort of a fait accompli, I would think, for Gilbert Arenas, 3D, to a certain extent. Once John Wall was picked at the top, eventually something was going to have to give, and it gave today.
No question about it. And I think Otis Smith and Gilbert being in Golden State a few years ago, they had that relationship. So there is a certain comfort level with Gilbert and Otis Smith. The question is now, is Gilbert going to be healthy? And is he going to come to Orlando with the right frame of mind? And I think Stan Van Gundy has nipped all the controversy in the bud right away. Jameer Nelson will be starting. If you remember when Jameer got hurt, was having an all-star year, the year they went to the finals, he came back with Rafe Alston. They inserted him back into the starting lineup for Game 7. Well, I think it was Game 6. So the bottom line is, Stan Van Gundy is more comfortable with Jameer being a starter.
All right, we're going to break down all of the parameters of the particular trades and talk about where players fit in, where they may not fit in. But right now, we want to get to David Aldridge of NBA.com, who's been all over this story, and DA on Arena Link in Washington, D.C. Would you say, David, that this was something that was going to transpire inevitably with John Wall's emergence and, of course, with Gilbert Arenas' history?
Oh, there's no question, Vince. I mean, once they won the lottery and got John Wall, this became John Wall's team. I mean, it was a fairly bloodless coup, and he became the leader of this team, and they had to do something. They knew that Gilbert and John could play together, but they couldn't really coexist together. I mean, there's just a difference between that. They both need the ball. They both expect to have the ball. And they tried to make it work. It didn't work badly. It just wasn't really working very well. And so the opportunity to get Gilbert out of town after the gun thing last year, there really was no future for Gilbert here, and I think he knew that. I think he was realistic about that. And it gives him an opportunity to play on a very good basketball team down in Orlando, and gives the Wizards a small forward they can play now. It also gives them great cap flexibility now in 2012, which just happens to be when guys like Chris Paul, and now you got to think about Dwight Howard having the opportunity to opt out of the final year of his contract that summer with this deal. And I was told Dwight Howard's okay with all of these moves and likes all of these moves, but this puts the onus on Orlando more than ever to win now. This team has to win right now to keep Dwight Howard happy.
No, you bring up a great point, DA, which takes me to my next question. With that move, staying a little to now, if Dwight gets in foul trouble or nicks an ankle or a knee, they have no traditional center to back him up.
Right.
Can they really win knowing that have that deficiency?
It's going to be tough, 3D. I mean, to me, of all the guys that got moved today, the guy I thought Orlando would hold on to was Gortat for that very reason. Not, we know that Dwight plays 40 minutes a game. It's not that Gortat plays big minutes for them. It's just that when you need him, whether it's foul trouble or injury, he was there. You had a great alternative, a guy that Dallas Mavericks gave $34 million to on an offer sheet because they thought he was worth it as a starting center in the NBA. So this is a guy that can start in the NBA if you need to get through 10, 15 games in a season. He was the one guy who was really surprised Orlando traded.
David, Mike Fratello, do you think either one of these teams may just be starting out as far as revamping the roster? And could we see another move or two taking place by either one of these two teams?
Zara, it's a great point. I mean, I think Orlando certainly, it wouldn't surprise me if they did some other things. They obviously have some redundancy now at the two-guard spot with both Richardsons now, and you add Gilbert Arenas to that. He's going to have to play some two. So, no, it wouldn't surprise me if there was another shoe that drops here with Orlando because the balance that they had, and you guys know this. I mean, what made Orlando very difficult was you had a stretch four and Rashard Lewis who could shoot the three. You had to guard him. You had to go out and accommodate for him, and that opened up so much room for Dwight Howard. Now if you're going to a more traditional four with Brandon Bass at the four or Turkoglu at the four, these are not guys that you have to go out to the three-point line to guard. So that power forward is going to be sitting in Dwight Howard's lap now. So to your point, Mike, I could see very easily another move being made because it just makes Orlando, to me, easier to guard than they've been.
How big an X factor does Phoenix become now in the West? Is this something that can really elevate them, DA?
I like what Phoenix did. Obviously, I told you, we just talked about Gortat, but I think Petrus is a guy, and I was just talking to somebody about this. It was Michael Petrus that was in the finals raining threes on the Lakers a couple of years ago, wasn't it? That wasn't some other guy named Michael Petrus, right? So, I mean, this guy's been in the finals. He's played well in the finals. He has a great pedigree. I know he kind of fell out of favor with Stan in Orlando, but I think he's perfect, tailor-made for the up-tempo style that Phoenix likes to run with Steve Nash. I mean, this is a guy that you can play at the 2, the 3, maybe even the 4 of some lineups. I think he helps them a lot. I think Gortat helps them a lot. Vince Carter, look, a lot of teams have thought they could get Vince Carter motivated to play the way everybody thinks he's capable of playing, and a lot of teams have failed. But the bottom line is that he's only on the hook for $4 million next year. If they don't like him, if they don't think it works out, they'll have to pay him $4 million next summer, and he's not there. So that's a low-risk move for the Phoenix Suns. I think this helps them a lot.
All right, David Aldridge, thank you very much for the perspective out there, right in the heart of things taking place in Washington. And so much is happening all around the league. Let's follow up on that Vince Carter point with you, 3D, about how where is Vince Carter career-wise, and is this something that could be a fountain of youth for him going out to Phoenix?
Well, DA answered that last question because that's where I was going to go, Coach. It's like since 3 years ago when he had that last injury, he hadn't been the same guy where he's been saying he's half man, half amazing. And I'm just curious, can Grant Hill and Steve Nash motivate him to get something out of it, and maybe they can make a splash in the Western Conference? And now I think, Coach, he's the X factor if Phoenix really wants to make that push for the playoffs.
I think David touched on a couple things here that were very significant. He mentioned Petrus struggling with Stan Van Gundy, wasn't happy initially when the regular season started with the minutes that he was getting. But it's more than just Petrus. And I felt the coaches in these situations maybe felt it was better to move certain people on. Gortat got a huge contract that Orlando matched the offer sheet that was given to him. They kept him there. He wanted more minutes. He felt that he could play alongside Dwight perhaps, and we just heard David talk about what happens when you don't have a stretch 4 out there on the floor. Well, they felt they couldn't increase his minutes that often. So two guys who may have been a little unhappy, Gortat, Petrus, they move. Vince Carter not having the kind of year that Orlando was hoping that Vince would have. Likewise, over in Phoenix, Turkoglu was not having the kind of year that Phoenix was hoping Turkoglu would have. So they're exchanging uniforms, and maybe a new start for everybody is good.
It's so interesting. I think the most compelling character in all of this is Gilbert Arenas. And, I guess it's like house shopping. It only takes one person to like that house, and it'll move. And Otis Smith is the guy who looked for that house, and that house was Gilbert Arenas. Is everything going to be okay with Orlando, with Gilbert Arenas? Because we'll look at his history here, and I'm sure, guys, that some teams were pretty hesitant, especially with, what, 4 years, $80 million remaining on the contract.
No question about it. I think Stan touched on it earlier. Offensively, I think they'll figure it out because these guys know how to play the game. I think it's the defensive end where Stan touched on, where now you don't have a lot of practice time and the rotations. In the year that they went to the finals, when they played, 1 in and 4 out, the rotations were simpler because you had 4 guys of the same size or similar sizes being able to rotate. So now, like Stan says, if Dwight gets in foul trouble and you go to Bass and you go to Malik Allen, now you get small very quickly down low, and that's going to be tough when you're playing in Boston's other league. If
we're honest about this, Gilbert Arenas has gone through a lot over the last couple seasons with everything that's taken place, his injuries, the problems off the court. I would like to see Gilbert Arenas bring his passion back to playing basketball. I think sometimes you can get beaten down to the point with everything that's going on, rehab all the time, the outside issues that took place after the gun incident, and he's kind of lost. I'm just watching him as an outsider. To me, it looks like he's lost that passion, that drive to excel, to make the big shots, to win the game at the end. I'd love to see that come back for Gilbert Arenas. Then it will make this huge gamble by Orlando pay off.
Well, he's going to have adjustments made, too, about what his role is going to be in Orlando now. You heard what Stan Van Gundy said about Jameer Nelson is not coming off the bench. And, well,
you will not be confused in Orlando what your role is.
That's for sure.